Anthony Scaramucci, managing partner of SkyBridge Capital and former White House communications director, joins me today to talk about the economy, politics, and what investment assets he likes. Anthony, welcome back to Kitco.
It's good to be here. Thanks, David.
We're going to run through the gamut of the economy here, but let's talk about the election first. Your reaction to the results. Did anything surprise you in particular with who won which states and whatnot?
Well, listen, I was surprised by Georgia. I mean, I know there's a recount there. We'll have to see what the ultimate result is. But the fact that they were successful in flipping Georgia tells you a lot about what's going on demographically in the United States. But no, I wasn't surprised about the election.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of talk about Trump contesting the election. He himself tweets about it every day. What is his goal? What is his plan? Investors would like to know if any of this adds substantial volatility to the markets, or if this is something that we should be paying attention to.
Well, I mean, I think it's just further evidence of how unfit he was for that office. He doesn't have the personality to be the president of the United States. And so thankfully, the American people have spoken. He'll be removed from the office on January 20th. But there's three motivations for what he's doing. Number one is money. And 2 and 3 happen to also be money. And that's all. He's raising money to pay off his campaign debt. He's got one more con going on with his supporters. He sends out these notices to help me raise money to fight these legal battles, which he's like 0 for 12 on. And so, listen, it's a disgusting act by him, and it'll reflect poorly on him and his family for generations. People will look back on this bizarre behavior and say it's classically un-American.
In your 3 goals, one of them was in the fact that he wants to be actually in the White House. So he's not trying to do this to legitimately be in the White House.
He's got no chance. He's got no chance to quote unquote stay in the White House. He has an illegitimate claim. He's 0 for 12 in the legal situation. He's lost the popular vote by 5 to 6 million votes. 5 states flipped on him in the election. And we're just now waiting for the certification from those states. But he's a very dishonest guy. And by the way, he had the same idea in 2016. He was going to tell everybody that it was a rigged election if he lost the election. And so he's just repackaging that for now. And so Mr. Trump's genius, if you will, if you want to call it genius, is sort of a mad, evil genius, is to act like an aggrieved victim. And that seems to work pretty well with his support base. For now. But I think I predict that support base will dissipate as policies come to fore in the American government that help those people. At the end of the day, the people that are voting for Mr. Trump are voting for him because they feel disaffected from the system and they feel left out of what's going on in the larger scale things in the United States. And that's an unfortunate thing. And I will praise Mr. Trump for seeing the vacuum of advocacy for those people. But now we need to provide a policy solution for them. And once we do, as I predicted, President Trump will be on the ash heap of history, the bellicosity of his rhetoric, the un-American bullying, the nastiness, the lack of policy, the potential destruction of the Western post-World War II alliance, the praising of the despots, while denigrating democratic leaders. All of that stuff will be thrown onto the ash heap of history.
Okay. Now, Anthony, you've had a chance to work with Mr. Trump in the White House, albeit for a very short period of time. Can you give us an insight as to how he makes decisions, how he makes political business decisions, how he calculates risks and rewards, right? There must be a cost to contesting the election. He's evaluated this. How has he come to this decision to do it anyway?
Well, remember, it wasn't just the 11 days I was in the White House. I worked for him for a year. I was on his executive transition team. And I also was part of the inaugural committee. So I know the guy very well. And this is a calculated decision to raise money for him to pay off his campaign debt and to see if he can have this grievance, conspiracy-filled, wackadoodle narrative going into the future. And he's going to flex now and see if he has any political legs to disrupt campaigns on a going forward basis or to potentially make money off of this sort of stuff in the media. But none of that stuff is going to happen because he's been disgraced here. He's one of 3 people that have lost a presidency. He lost the incumbency. And he's a failed one-term president. So a result of which, let's just go over the facts. He mishandled the pandemic and toppled the U.S. economy. Those two factors cost him the election. And so when he's sitting out there 3-6 months from now as an ex-president trying to generate support and demand at his rallies, I predict that those things will be nonsensical. They'll look very similar to what happened to him in Oklahoma, where his staff told him there'd be hundreds of thousands of people there and 6,000 people showed up. And so, but the calculus right now is money. He's broke, and he's broke in a weird way because he's probably made a lot of money from the presidency, but he probably can't figure out a way to channel it back into the United States. And so the money that he's got like out in the open is probably not matching the debts that he has right now. So it'll be an interesting dilemma for him over the next 24 months.
So, Anthony, there are 70 million people who voted for Trump. So there's a large voter base of people who believe that Biden did not legitimately win the presidency and that the election is rigged. And so does this present challenges for the Biden administration for passing legislation?
Well, I think Mitch McConnell is the person that presents challenges to passing legislation. If they win in Georgia, and I predict that they will, and McConnell's the majority leader, and he's dealing with his longtime friend, now President Biden, the challenge will be, what does Mitch McConnell want to do to President Biden? He said 12 years ago that he wanted Barack Obama to be a one-term president. If he's saying the same thing about Vice President Biden or President-elect Biden, you're going to have major challenges at the policy level. As it relates to the claims, it's unfortunate. We have a lot of misinformation in the United States. 70% of Trump supporters believe that the election was fraudulent. There's absolutely no evidence. To quote John Bolton, former national security advisor, man, this must have been some conspiracy. These people are so good, they should be at the head of the CIA because they provided no fingerprints, no evidence of any fraudulent activity. And so, I mean, what could be more brilliant than that? I mean, the whole thing is a sham and it's nonsensical. And I want to denigrate President Trump and roundly criticize him for infecting this germ into the American democracy. He is playing right into the hands of our adversaries. It's almost like he's a copywriter for Russian intelligence in terms of how to upset the apple cart of America. And I think it's disgusting. And I think he will end up as arguably the least successful American president of the modern era because of this nonsense.
Anthony, let's talk about the economy now in SkyBridge Capital. You recently have shown interest in investing in cryptocurrencies and digital assets. Can you tell us about your rationale?
Yeah, just simply, we have no cryptocurrencies. We have no investments at this time. But after doing 2 years of research on the digital asset space, I wanted to have that flexibility. And so we're a registered investment company. And so we filed with the SEC just to indicate and to include in our prospectus that on a going forward basis, if we decide that we're going to invest in those things, everybody, our investors, the SEC, and everybody is properly notified. But at this time, we have no investments in the digital space. It's just a flexibility that I wanted to add to our investment thesis going forward.
How do you view digital assets like cryptocurrencies? Is it a risk-on asset for you, or is it a store of wealth? Is it a safe haven? What's your thesis there?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, it's too volatile for you not to consider it a risk asset, or obviously an asset that's loaded with a lot of volatility. Could it become a store of value? Could it be quote unquote digital gold? Yes, I do think that. And so I think that there is promise in the digital asset space. I'm not, I'm a little bit old fashioned, so I'm not yet ready to commit to any specific coin or specific genre. Obviously, Bitcoin, friends of mine like Michael Saylor believe that that is the one asset. If you look at the market cap of Bitcoin, it being $200 billion, you could suggest that that's going to be the dominant one. Having said that, I just used the word market cap. And so when you think about it from a perspective, you don't use the words market cap when it comes to a currency. And so I think we're going to see a transformation from this being a quote unquote asset and being thought of as an asset to being a potential currency. and we'll have to see. But the big question for me always was: is this a tulip bulb, or are we doing something that's much ado about nothing? And I think I've come to the decision, as well as my investment management team, that no, there is something here. There's some tangibility here, and it may be a future store of value, to use your words, particularly in an age where fiat currency is being consistently manipulated and manipulated in a coordinated way, I might add, by the central banks.
That final question, Anthony. Economic recovery, is it happening? Is it real? Is it not happening? And how are you placing your bets? What are your favorite assets right now, given the economic landscape?
So it's definitely a K-shaped recovery. Some people are doing way better. People that own assets are doing way better than people that don't own assets. The middle and lower middle class are suffering. There's 25 to 30 million people unemployed, depending on how you count it. And so it has me worried. You don't want the society to completely break down. You can be a student of history to see that if you have that level of disparity in a country, it usually comes with some level of political unrest. And so we have to solve for that. But I think the good news for the United States is with the renewed government, more competent leadership, people that are not crazy, just normal people being at the top of the federal government, I think you could see a deeper recovery once we get the vaccine in place and we start to normalize and get ourselves back to the 2018, 2019 GDP levels. And so I think that can happen, but I do think it's 12 months away. And it's very important. It's a critical time for the U.S. to take care of the people that are suffering right now. And most of those people have to go physically to their jobs. They can't operate the way you or I can remotely. And we have to help those people right now.
So stocks, do you like them right now, given what you just said?
I do like stocks now. Yeah, I mean, they're trading at 23 times 2021 earnings. That's historically high number, but interest rates are so low and the Fed is inducting so much liquidity that I do like stocks long term. And there'll likely be a sector rotation that's more durable than the previous rotations, which will be good for the market.
And gold?
Well, it's interesting, so I would say that gold is probably going to be replaced by digital currency. So it's not like I dislike gold, but I definitely think it has competition.
Anthony, thank you so much for coming on Kitco today. I appreciate your time.
Good to be here. Be well.
Thank you for watching Kitco News. Stay tuned. I'm David Lin.